Good afternoon, my name is Matt Zuccaro. I'm president of the Helicopter Association International, and we're here inside the HAI Heli-Center at EAA Oshkosh AirVenture 2011. And with me, it's my pleasure to introduce Craig Fuller, president of Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association, AOPA.
Thank you, Matt. It's great to be here. It's great to see you and the team here, and you know, this vertical tent you have has impressed all of us. So it's great to be with you.
No, I appreciate that, and obviously you have a great presence yourself, and you were gracious enough to invite me over this morning for your AOPA Live initiative, where you are broadcasting live from the show.
You know, we've found that what you're doing and what we do is a great way to share what's happening at a place like AirVenture Oshkosh with literally thousands of people and around the world. I mean, I know you reach an audience around the world, and so it's nice. It's not everybody can get here. We got a few 100,000 people here, but I think we really believe in this, and I'm glad to be able to participate with you in this interview.
Oh, thanks, appreciate it. And I think what might be of interest to certainly the helicopter industry, our members, is maybe a brief overview of AOPA and the structure, which I think they're generally familiar with it, but I know you do so much more than what they realize.
Actually, I've been a member since 1973, and I became president of AOPA in January 2009. And I'll be honest, I didn't realize, even as a member for so many years, all the things that happened. It really goes back to 1939, in an airport called Wings Field just outside of Philadelphia. Some individuals got together who were enjoying the freedom to fly their own aircraft, and with the prospect of war coming on and government restrictions being proposed, they decided that there needed to be an organization that would protect their freedom to fly and others like them, and also to prevent over-regulation, over-taxation, and plus they wanted a vehicle to communicate what was happening with this new general aviation community. It is kind of amazing that 72 years later, those objectives are pretty much the same ones we have today. Of course, the organization's changed a lot. We have about 200 people on the staff. We're based in Frederick, Maryland. We're involved in advocacy at the federal level, the state level. We have publications, both print publications as well as electronic online publications. And you mentioned AOPA Live, which is our newest venture into the world of video. We have about 400,000 members today. I'm proud of the fact we have a few thousand helicopter pilots, actually quite a few thousand helicopter pilots in that mix. And when I was at your show last year, a number of them walked up and would say hello and let me know they were members, which I think makes the point that we're all in this together. And we very much believe in working closely with our other colleagues in the general aviation community, and I know you believe that. But we're doing well. There's a lot of issues that challenge us. I think the mood here in Oshkosh at AirVenture is more positive than I've seen it the last couple of years. I think people are feeling better about where we're headed, and while economic recovery is a bit slow, we're certainly hopeful that people get back and do more flying and enjoy their aircraft, whether fixed wing or rotor.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and being personally a longtime member of AOPA, since I'm a fixed wing pilot as myself, I really appreciate the programs you have for the membership. I know personally for me it's been beneficial, and I know it serves the GA fixed wing community very well.
You know, one of the things that I had never taken advantage of is our Pilot Information Center. And we get hundreds of thousands of calls a year in the Pilot Information Center. We get 60 or 70,000 calls regarding medical. Medicals are important for all of us, and that's a great service. Our AOPA Foundation exists to help enhance the perception of general aviation, to build a pilot population, to protect airports, and of course that's where we do the work of our Air Safety Institute, which produces programs online for pilots. And if anything is if there's a good news story about a little bit less flying the last couple of years, the number of people who take those courses, the number of courses taken is up, and I think it's a way for people to stay current, to stay engaged, even if perhaps they're not flying as much.
Yeah, I know, and absolutely, obviously, as you know better than anybody, the responsibilities of an association president involve a lot of lobbying on the Hill and Congress, we do it. We have to do it. It's
Right.
part of the landscape, and also being very intimate and familiar with the membership and their needs. And I think it's an important fact that you have extensive experience in both of those venues in terms of you had experience with the Reagan administration and Chief of Staff for Vice President Bush, and you're an active pilot all this time and aircraft owner.
Yeah, well, the flying definitely for me came first. I was in high school and in Northern California, and Concord Buchanan Field decided I was going to do my first flying, and got my license and actually began doing a little aerial photography work.
Oh, okay.
Before I knew the advantages of being in a helicopter to do that.
Obviously,
sort of thing.
yeah.
But that helped pay for fuel, and I stayed involved, and I went to college, and so I have flown for a long time. I was a political science major at UCLA, and ended up meeting then Governor Reagan, and it was one of those situations where it certainly changed my life, because when he got elected president, I went to the White House. I ended up there eight years, and after that, while I always thought I'd go back to California, I've ended up staying in Washington. I do think that for what we all do, the campaign experience, the policy experience, it helps. People say to me today, "Gee, don't you do a lot of traveling? Does it get to you?" And I say, well, it's all relative. In a presidential campaign, you basically never get home. I'm home about half the time, and I do like meeting with members. I know you feel the same way. I think in some ways, it's the best part of the job, to be able to spend time with people who are passionate about what they're flying. So I enjoy the town hall meetings. I enjoy the interaction we have with members. It shows there's nothing quite like Oshkosh, but AirVenture, but any of the Sun and Fun, our summit, your meeting. They're great ways to spend time with people. Yeah. I did duck out and go back with some of our friends in Washington and break a little bread the other morning for breakfast to try to figure out what in the world we're doing here with this budget debate. Yes. I will share that the Senator McConnell, the leader on the Republican side in the Senate, does not believe user fees are going to be in the package at this point. It's that phrase, as you well know, that we worry the most about. Yeah. But we're working with you and our other friends in general aviation. We're all, I know, vigilant and working hard. And indeed, that breakfast would not have happened had your members and others not raised their voices, because Senator McConnell wanted to hear from us, face to face, what was going on, what we were concerned about. So, it's for me. I've been involved with aviation, as I said, for a long time. It's a real privilege to be able to represent our friends who fly.
Yeah, yeah, and obviously the issues are varied, but sometimes very similar across all the types of aviation. But from your perspective, what do you think are the top three on the bullet list that GA and your members and are dealing with?
I mentioned user fees. One of the issues that has been with us, we thought we'd kind of knocked it down, and we may have for a while again. But the user fee issue is something that there are some in government who just look at what has happened in Europe and Canada and other places, and they say, "Gee, why they tried it there? Why not us?" But they don't look hard enough, because in Europe and in Canada, the user fee has decimated general aviation, and putting a charge on flight operations is the single best way to discourage flight operations, or at least use of instrument plans and things like that.
Sure.
So we hate the idea that there would be a whole new bureaucracy built up, and no matter how small it starts, the other thing we've learned is it always grows. Some say, well, this fee would only be $100. It only apply to business jets. Yes. Well, pretty soon they build the bureaucracy, and then it applies to other aircraft, smaller aircraft, rotor aircraft. It's not the nature of government to shrink in size, and so once they get a toehold in there, it grows, and that's why we've been so adamant, and that's one big issue. Fuel has been an issue for our piston aircraft, although I think the 100 low lead is going to be around for a good long time. We do need to find a fuel that doesn't have lead in it. That's been an important issue for us. Another one is our air traffic control system. It has to be modernized.
Yes.
We fly these aircraft, again, whether rotor or fixed wing, with technology, GPS technology, that allows the pilot to know exactly where he or she is. the controller does not have as precise information. And so modernizing our air traffic control system is important for all of us. I always commend your group, your industry, because I think one of the great success stories in the early phases of next gen and ADS-B is occurring in the Gulf with thousands and thousands of safe operations that benefit by the ADS-B technology. I think it's going to take longer in the fixed wing community, but our message has been, look, we've invested both in the commercial carriers as well as general aviation, in RNAV capability, RNP approaches for commercial. We want to get the FAA moving so we can actually benefit by that. And I think those procedures will help us. I think some of the new technology will help us. That's important. Lastly, I'll touch upon and just say that for all of us, the declining pilot population is very, very worrisome. 29 years ago, we had over 800,000 pilots with current medicals. Today, we're down to 600,000. And if we see a continued decline, which we're seeing, by the way, not replacing as many of our friends who are retiring, then we're going to face a real problem. We're not going to have the constituency, if you will, to be able to represent a dwindling pilot population. So we're all concerned about it. We've done some, I think, helpful, useful research to look at what works. And there's a lot of discussion here at AirVenture. Rod Hightower at EAA is deeply committed to growing the pilot population. And I think all of us have a role to play in that, because all of us will benefit greatly if this pilot population expands.
Yeah, obviously we interface with each other constantly, and that is the thing that I think is on everybody's radar screen, the future of this industry.
And needless to say, we want people flying safely, and you guys have been real leaders in advancing safety as a priority. We try to do the same, so that's always on our list of important issues.
Yeah, and on that point exactly, I know you have the Safety Institute, subset of your foundation, and they've got a lot of very aggressive, positive outreach programs. What is some of the stuff they're doing now?
You know, it's interesting, and you and I were both in a meeting with the chairman of the NTSB the other day, and they're of course looking at issues in general aviation, but our training programs, our online video programs are aimed directly at where we can see issues out there in the aviation community that need to be addressed. And one example, we know that for reasons we cannot understand, we have pilots who fly into weather for which they're not qualified. And it's always that notion of, well, maybe I've got to get there, or I've done this before and I know generally what the terrain is like. Well, we have a video. It's one of the most watched online presentations we do that shows you just how dangerous that is, and how once you get disoriented, I don't care whether you've flown down the valley 100 times, if you're disoriented, you're in a serious situation. Or we see people who load up too much on their aircraft and can't take off, so we talk about weight and balance issues. I've been really pleased to see how many people are, as I said, are taking these courses, taking these programs, and really always wanting to make sure they know as much as they can about their aircraft and about flying. I actually think that's the nature of those of us who fly. We want information, and this medium is giving us a chance to do a lot more of that.
Yeah, and the other thing I think I would acknowledge is the fact of the cooperative effort that we had with the tragic accident in the Hudson River, and that was one of the greatest threats, as you well know, to our access to airspace, and in the helicopter community, access to our actual lifeblood of the heliports.
Sure.
And the immediate knee-jerk reaction, as you certainly do know, was to shut down all that airspace.
Right.
So I really appreciate your commitment to cooperate with us, and it was the classic scenario. Each one of us had a member and a category of aircraft involved in an event that could have been cataclysmic for all of us long term. So I think the strength there was the cooperative effort, and I thank you and your staff for that.
Well, I appreciate that, but I will say HAI was right there early on. You educated me. I had just recently come into AOPA, and it was a very good example of everybody pitching in and working together. And I think also we'd acknowledge that the new FAA administrator at that time, Randy Babbitt, stepped in too and said to all of us, look, come together. I think we sort of sequestered a group of people for a couple of weeks in Newark
Yes.
and put them to work until they had the answers we needed.
Yeah.
And literally, in a very short period of time, had some very good thinking about ways to do everything possible to make sure something like that doesn't happen again.
Yeah, that situation required exactly you said, the proper leadership from the administrator, and the good news for us is it was there.
I'll tell you kind of a funny story about that. We got a call shortly before the announcement was going to be made by the FAA with respect to what had been worked out from a member of the congressional staff who said, well, brief us on what they've decided and then tell us what we can do to add to it. And we said, well, we wouldn't add anything.
Right.
And they said, well, but we have to add something. We said, no, you don't. You had all the parties together.
Yeah.
They've got a good resolution. Just to embrace it. And I think, again, I think the impact was because everybody sat at the table together and worked through this, they didn't twist it around when they got back to Capitol Hill.
No, yeah, I agree 100%. I happen to be fortunate enough to be part of the team that was sequestered in New York.
Right.
And yeah, it was really a very heartfelt thing to watch. Everybody put the agendas aside, and we all said, how do we make it safer?
Right.
How do we make it more operationally efficient?
Right.
And the goal was achieved, I think, and to the benefit of all of us. So
Absolutely.
yeah. So maybe if we could take a brief, quick walk right out here, and let's take a look at some aircraft.
You don't have to twist my arm to get.
When are you going to possibly find you behind the controls of one of these?
Well, Matt, you know, that's a very nice idea. I have in my past had a little bit of time, and actually sitting there and going up the hash marks on the runway and back the hash marks on the runway is indelibly in my mind. So I'll give it a try. I'll give it a try.
Yeah, keep in mind that the new student typically uses up the size of a football field in their attempt to hover, and eventually we get it down to staying still over one spot.
I like that idea. I like that idea. Well, I drove up to a place we have in Bethany one time, and I saw two little Robinson helicopters sitting right there outside the beach house. I thought that was a pretty good way to travel across the Chesapeake Bay. So.
Yeah. Well, in an effort to keep you thinking about helicopter rotary wing, we'll give you one of our caps for the sunshine.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I will. I'll wear it in the spirit of cooperation that exists between HAI and AOPA.
And I already have my AOPA hat because I'm a member.
Good. Thanks so much.
Thanks for joining us this afternoon.
It's a real pleasure to be here. Thanks.